Doesn't exist.
So I shouldn't have called you, Lisa.
Once it's granted and it was granted.
Okay.
So,
Oh, might as well just wait for him to get up here.
Sure, the cat ate my homework.
oh, when you're a celebrity, you gotta wear sunglasses.
Is it raining?
All right, I'll call this meeting to order. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call.
Councilmember Bogas.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Purdon.
Here.
Councilmember Carr.
Here.
Mayor Gibson.
Here.
Councilmember Corey.
Here.
Councilmember Fullick.
Here.
Councilmember Fitzpatrick.
Here.
All right, public comment.
Our new podium. Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. For the record, Dwight Esmond, Paradise Road area. Did you miss me? Don't answer that.
Yes.
I want to see if I can get some answers today about the budget item named Paradise Road Bike Ped Improvements on page 114 of your workshop packet. I'm really happy with a lot of the plans, but I do have 3 questions. The estimated cost of the project is over $13 million, and it won't be finished until 2030. First question, why does it take 4 years to do this project? It calls for a 10-foot wide multi-use path on the west side and a new 6-foot wide sidewalk on the east side. Haven't we learned that putting bikes and e-bikes in the same space as pedestrians is dangerous? So question 2, why can't there be 2 10-foot wide paths on each side since there's 15 feet of right-of-way on each side? Then the paths can be striped so that bikes use one half, riding with the traffic, and pedestrians use the other half, facing the oncoming bikes and traffic. I think this is much safer for everyone. And while there's a lot of good things, there was no mention of speed tables. Will there be any on Paradise? Maddox had 2, and I think 3 would be appropriate for the 1 mile from Paradise to from the roundabout at Maddox to Shangri-La. American Structure Point has been contracted to design this project, and they have promised to get input from the public. But it would seem that they've been given fairly specific directions for the design. I hope they will listen to what the public wants and what will be the safest for the neighborhood. And I hope you can ask these 3 questions. Why 4 years? Why not 2 10-foot paths? And will there be speed tables? And get the answers today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none. Who's kicking us off for the,
Lisa is going to be coming forward to provide us with the overview of the proposed annual budget.
Good afternoon. We're here to present the first preliminary draft of your 25-26 budget. That does start October 1st, 2025. This is the budget calendar that begins today and will conclude with our final adoption in mid-September. We have had quite a few public, capital projects workshops, but this is your first time that you will see a full balanced budget, preliminary budget for your next fiscal year. That is today, and then at our next meeting, July 16th, we will have our preliminary millage rate vote, and we will have our stormwater utility vote. That millage rate vote is the first of three, as we'll outline on your calendar as we head toward final adoption mid-September. And please note that these dates are clearly outlined in Florida statute, and we do follow those. Your two meetings, in August, both your regular council meetings, we will provide budget updates. As you all know, we start this process now. We receive various data as we move through to the final adoption in September, and we're asked to incorporate some changes or look at other things. So we'll be bringing you back updates on that each time we get together. Wednesday, September 3rd at 5:30 p.m., that will be your tentative budget hearing. That will include your second of 3 millage rate votes. And then September 17th at 5:30, that will be your final budget hearing, including your final millage rate vote. And again, your 2 September hearings have to be after 5:01, and we've selected 5:30 for those dates.
Can you go back for 1 second? What was the last?
You betcha. September 17th, and those are your 2 Wednesdays that you regularly have, your first and your third, that we have council meetings on. But because of Florida statute, we had to make sure that both of those were after 5:01. So your 9 a.m. meeting has been moved to 5:30.
And,
Yes,
and
yes.
nothing's changed from the sheet that we originally.
This is exactly what you've seen it. I think this is the third time you've seen it. Thank you very much. This is the third time you've seen it, but it does always help. And with the public, we like for the public to tune in or come see us if they'd like. Excuse me, went the wrong way. There you go. So the draft budget is based on the following strategic priorities, which we updated earlier this year. Number 1, improve stormwater management and resiliency. Number 2, improve vehicular and multimodal transportation networks. Number 3, enhance community aesthetics, parks, and facilities. Number 4, environmental protection. Number 5, strengthen city finances. Number 6, government transparency and efficiency. And number 7, economic development. The draft budget is based upon the following: the millage rate of 0.8470, which is our current rate that we have now, and it's also based on your storm utility fee at the current rate. Those are the projections you will see in your budget. Revenue category. This is, you always know I have a favorite slide. This is one of my favorite slides. What it does is it shows the revenue citywide, and it breaks it down into the different categories. As you all can see, ad valorem tax is only 33%. That's our largest one, and that's only 33% of our total. My opinion, in my experience with municipalities, that is a healthy, diversified revenue stream. Expenditures by function. This is, again, citywide. So with everything that we show you with your budget, we follow Florida Governmental Finance Officers Association's recommended presentation. We show you the prior year actual. We show you, those are the 3 data sets you'll see in everything. We show you the current budget, which is our budget 24-25. And then we show you expected 24-25. And then we also present your preliminary budget for next fiscal year for 25-26, so you can have that comparison, and that comparison data is consistent on all the stuff that we provide for you, the data we provide for you. The significant changes that you see here, because this is a citywide slide, are related to capital improvement projects. So the physical environment, that's actually stormwater. So when you see the data spikes those are capital improvement projects that are generated by stormwater needs. Transportation, similarly, and parks and recs. Those are our 3 major categories of capital improvements. On this slide, they're in there. We're going to show you a slide later that isolates capital projects and regular recurring operating expenditures. Revenues by fund type. Again, I love when it breaks it down by fund type, because the blue on this slide, that's our regular recurring operating. And as you can see, fiscal year 23-24, economic, the economy, we had some robust levels there. We budgeted to come down a little bit, again, following the lead for the state economists. They do a great job. But as you can see, the good news here is that we expect we're going to exceed that slightly. In this economy, slightly is a good thing. So the next slide, you'll see that we come down just a little. Now, what we're going to be doing as we move through the process, some of the updates we'll bring you is when the state economists issue their revenue estimates, and they will in August, we'll incorporate those in here, and we'll let you know if we have to make a change. What we base the revenue projections you have before you today, we base those on historic trends and the quarterly estimates that we have from the state. I talk to you guys all the time about what the economists say about our different revenue types, so we've incorporated those in here. Expenditure by fund type. This is where you can really see the difference, the significant spikes that we have to do with our capital projects. Again, those aren't designed to start and stop in one fiscal year, so they roll over and they carry forward until they're complete, and that's why you see that spikes there. Our debt service, not significant changes. Special revenue expenditures again, and the general fund, really very little can change from projected change from this budget year to next budget year. Ad valorem revenue, real estate tax, taxable values. This is as of January 1st, 2025. So the percentage changes you see here are from January 1st, 2024 to January 1st, 2025. So when you read in the media, some of the things that are happening currently maybe in the market, those aren't reflected here as of yet. When next year, when we stand here, we'll be looking at a slide that's from January 1, 2025 to January 1, 2026. That is outlined in Florida statutes. But as you can see, we did have an increase in our taxable values from last fiscal year. Good news, good news. This is shown graphically, so you can see the recent years. You can see we have experienced increases in our taxable value year over year. And this slide I really, really like. This is our downtown redevelopment area. As you all know, we entered a partnership with Lee County to set aside monies from tax value incremental growth each year. That value continues to grow, so our investment in downtown appears to be continuing. Ad valorem revenue, real estate taxes, just values. And again, this is January 1, 2025. Just value is a state term that you see that we're really required to use. That is the property appraiser's data that most closely mirrors market value. So what you see here is what the property value has assessed has happened, generally speaking, with market values from January 2024 to January 1, 2025.
Lisa,
Yes, sir.
if I may, well, again, you've already said it, basically, this is based on lagging indicators.
It is. Governments does lag. Yes, it does.
Even though those are negatives, they could be worse.
They could be. And we watch it very closely, as we all do. We all watch the real estate market. So we will be watching what happens and basing our next year's budget on whatever occurs from here until January. And keep in mind, he just released this. This is I wanted to stress this. Thank you for asking the question. This is our June 1 estimate. Just like I talked about, this is our very first estimate of our taxable value. July 1, we'll get another estimate. And it does continue to change as we head toward our final adoption. So it doesn't usually move very much from June 1 to July 1, but we'll bring you that number. This is our just value citywide, and you can see how the reduction. Up until this year, we have seen steady increases. Again, this is intended to mirror market value. So you can see this year there is a slight decrease. Allocation of real estate tax bill. As you can see here, the city of Bonita Springs is roughly 6% of the total real estate tax bill. And that has been fairly consistent since the inception of the city. Real estate tax projection. What we do each year in order to give you an idea of the impact of the taxable values from from last year to this year. We take 4 value sets, so this should represent a single-family home. This one would have Save Our Homes. Our Save Our Homes is, by Florida statute, can only increase up to 3%. So if it's a home here in Bonita that has a Save Our Homes, which most of our residents do, it will could increase up to 3%. So the first data set there is their last year's taxable value and last year's taxes that they paid. So then we roll it forward and add 3% and say, for that $330,000 house, now it's going to be valued at $339,900. So the taxes will go up roughly $8 for that house. And then we gave you several different scenarios there of different values of house to give you an idea of how they would be impacted. And that's based on the budget, keeping the current rate in place. FEMA update. We wanted to bring you guys an update on our FEMA reimbursement as it does impact our reserves, and you'll see some of the last little pieces of impact in our budget. Hopefully those will be cleared up relatively soon. What you have before you is your operating and disaster reserves. Your operating reserves this fiscal year are calculated at $5.4 million. Your reserve policy we calculate 4 months of operating expenditures for the last 2 fiscal years. So that should prepare us to be able to continue operating in the event of revenue interruption or anything that may occur. Disaster reserves, your reserves are valued right now at $2.8 million. There's an asterisk there to let you know that we have, as directed by council in prior years, your capital improvement plan includes you adding $400,000 each fiscal year to that amount. Now, lower in the slide, you will see we are still waiting on reimbursement for some of our projects from Hurricane Ian, Milton, and Helene. So these numbers have been updated since you last saw them to add Helene and Milton in there. There were some costs for those. So we're still waiting on about $1.7 million. So the budget you have before you has $6.5 million in operating and disaster reserves in the general fund. And in addition to that, we have the local government emergency bridge loan of $2 million that the state has graciously allowed everyone to keep. It doesn't have any interest, and we're not required to pay it back until many years in the future. That can be utilized for operating after a disaster. We wanted to provide to you guys a history of general fund unrestricted fund balance. The first data point is what you see before you, the current projected fiscal year for 25-26. What we did was show what the slide we saw before, and then we compared it to the most recent years. As you can see, our total reserves, similar to the prior slide, $6.5 million. We included here unassigned fund balance, that's roughly $3.2 million. So unrestricted fund balance in the general fund in the budget you have before you is $9.7 million. And again, in addition to that, that disaster reserve loan is available to help us operate in a disaster. And you can compare it to the recent fiscal years there. We do feel we're moving in the right direction. Ian, 24-25, that's when we really felt we had all the financial expenditures related to Ian, and we were really waiting to be reimbursed. So next, we have an emergency financial plan. Florida statutes that I've referenced here. This is new, and they are encouraging all local governments to develop an emergency financial plan for major natural disasters. This is part of our participation in Florida Recovery Obligation Calculation, as we know as FROC. And we need to review this plan each year.
For the record, you'll all be receiving a copy of this plan.
Yes.
Once it's reviewed by me and our city attorney.
And I just lost my paperweight, that's great.
So, yes, thank you. So let me outline, so this is the first year we're doing this emergency financial plan annual review. I wanted to outline a couple things about it. The majority of this data here comes from Florida statutes. It's recommended that we do that. The city will review potential costs for a major disaster each fiscal year. Strategies will be discussed to provide additional funding for the projected disaster events. And they want us to say if the costs we think we will incur exceed the money we have available, do we have a plan in place for that? And have we talked about what the strategies will be? The strategies in the last bullet, those are listed in Florida statute, so we wanted to present them here to you. All of them may not be applicable to the city, some of them will, but these are the way in which Florida statutes recommend you look at any kind of projected shortfall. So it's increases in operating disaster reserves, reviewing priorities in your current budget, or short-term borrowing. This slide, we wanted to show you two of our relatively recent major events that we've had. These are costs that we know we've had. As you can see, Ian there, 9.7 million. Irma, roughly 8.7, 8.8 million. We did want to mention when we show you Ian, we are still rebuilding some of our infrastructure. As you know, it takes a while for permitting and things of that nature and to work through the FEMA reimbursement process. So some of those are only the capital pieces that are waiting for us to reconstruct a few things. This slide, what we're doing here is attempting to show you your, this is Ian cost. We're showing Ian costs at 9.7 million on one side, and then we're showing you what you have in your current budget for 25-26 for unassigned fund balance and then that disaster reserve loan. So Ian's cost, roughly, again, those are dated by a few years, 9.7 million, and then projected available funds, 9.7 million, and then the disaster reserve funds loan we have available to help us with that. Debt service. We briefly wanted to cover debt service. The balanced budget that you have in front of you has a detailed section for debt service last 10 years, projected debt service for the next 10 years. I encourage you all to look at that. But what we wanted to show you today is we have 3 loans, and we wanted to give you the annual debt service requirements you have there before you and the maturity dates for those. The land acquisition loan, you see the annual debt service requirement there. The downtown redevelopment loan that the county participated with us on is there. And then just please note that emergency local government emergency bridge loan, it has 0 debt service. We're not required to make debt service or pay any interest. And our maturity for that is 2033. So we will have that available to us to meet our disaster recovery needs till 2033. And then we list the amount of debts that is there, and then we give the funding sources. A good news piece here, I know I talk about this quite a bit, but when you can partner with someone else for growth in an area, it's a good thing, so I don't think you can overstate that. So the county has fully met their obligation under that because of the tax incremental growth we've been watching in downtown, so that money is sitting in the bank waiting to pay off that debt service. There will be a piece of $3 million roughly that the city will pay for that, but that is a very good partnership and a win-win situation.
Can I ask a question on that real quick?
Yes, sir.
Just if you go back to, okay, so the bridge loan, that $2 million is available to us, right? And it's not due until 33, you said?
2033?
So so we can use that right now. Could we hypothetically use that for current ongoing projects at a decent sized scale, and then we have plenty of time to put that back in, right? Like, can we use that for that purpose or no?
It can only be used for operating the city in a response for a natural disaster.
So it has to be
in a
in the
hurricane.
response of a disaster.
Yes, exactly. So if we needed to operate, if we needed to pay salaries, that's what that's for. But it cannot be used for anything else. And that's probably one of the reasons why we're getting such advantageous rates. No debt service, no interest rate. It's really just to help the state help us prepare and have some money set aside.
Thanks.
Welcome. Continuation budget. Each year, and this is detailed, I know it's probably hard to read here, I apologize about that, but it is in your packet, it's in the packet that's online. What we show you each year is we calculate your continuation budget to actually operate at the same level of service. This year, the projections are 3.01% higher than the prior year. And then what we do is we basically call out or list separately any new budget funding request. And those are all listed here. We continued them on the next screen there. And those are actually intended for council discussion. So with that, my presentation is concluded. And I'll open it up to, yes, sir.
When we pull the budget together, do we consider the likely increase in population year by year? I mean, in 20, let's see, my figures here. In 2010, we had 43,900 people. Now we got 56,000 in 25, a 26% increase, which increases the demand or increases the necessity of public works projects. Okay. And we've had, at the same time, we've had an increase in commercial square feet of over 1 million square feet. So I assume that we're picking up additional taxes on that square footage. But we know we have traffic problems, and we know that we have stormwater demands, and we heard from Dwight that, you know, there's a need for improvements in such areas as Paradise Road and so forth. My concern is that, you know, we have to somehow balance the growth of the city and the ability to respond more quickly to demands for public works. So if I take the population of the city at, say, 56,000, and I divide it into roughly $18 million in the capital improvement budget, so I get an expenditure per citizen in the census, about $321 for fiscal year 26. Somehow that doesn't seem to do what we need to invest in the public works that's needed in Bonita Springs. I think there's increased demand for good roads. There's an increased demand for, and I'm saying we finance it with ad valorem taxes. That's a separate issue. But are we really completing public works projects at the speed in which we need to complete them? And are we to meet what's needed for this city to really thrive and become the city we all think we deserve? And, you know, can we balance that with some approach to taxes, some approach to grants, so forth, and look at this in terms of the public work projects, which ones do we really need to move forward? So I think we have to take into account public work, the growth in anticipated population. I mean, if we look over the next 10 years, which is all of our, I think on this council, probably a good time frame to look at, maybe not 50 years, but 10 years, then, you know, we're likely to see about a third increase again. So from 56,000, you blow it out, you'd say we'll be at 70. So are we planning public works capital budgets along that line? And do we need to start over in what I call over-investing in that?
So I think, Chris, that's in the second part of the discussion of the capital improvements. When we presented the continuation budget, this is our general operating budget, that we get the permits out the door, that we open the doors, that we receive the calls, so that we're doing the general function of government. And then that is where we projected that we would actually have a cost increase to do those level of service. For example, we have contracts with Lee County for continuing services. We have contracts with Jacobs Engineering. We have contracts. So we've estimated what we believe that cost may be going up for us to continue the same level of service that we're providing now in general government services. I think what you might be referring to is how we prioritize the capital improvement projects.
Well, partly that, but it's also partly taking a look at, you know, are we really set going forward with enough people, enough capacity, technology-wise and so forth, to grow from where we are today to where we're gonna be in 10 years. Have we considered that? You know, do we need to start thinking about making some provisions for investments for the future growth of the city, in terms of the way we operate? Do we need, for example, do we need to expand should we start thinking about, is there a need to expand the resources and capabilities of our contract with Jacobs Engineering? And I know that John would jump up and down for that, but I mean, we're gonna go through a process here where, everybody says, well, we're out of land. Well, if you're out of land, what you do is you go up. You can't go out, you start to go up. So I can envision gentrification issues for a whole bunch of properties in downtown Bonita Springs. So, are we set to deal with that?
So within our planning processes for this, we continue to have conversations with the directors at each step of the way. For example, pretty early on in this coming year, based on the new requirements that are coming through the state regarding the expansion of our emergency management response of the city versus the federal response. There's going to be extra demands on certain departments, and throughout the whole year, we want to prepare you for those and continue that conversation. So I think we feel comfortable with the department directors on the budget we presented for this year, but October 2nd starts our conversation for next year internally with those recommendations and briefings along the way. We'd also like to start the CIP review in November with you all, to kind of start beginning addressing and prioritizing those as well. But yes, as different demands happen, as changes in federal and state policy happen, there are additional requirements that then become on the city as well.
I just want to add, to your point, Councilman Corey, there are two major planning efforts, long-term planning efforts that the city's already selected planning firms for. One is on Nicole's side of the fence with the parks, that would speak to expanded park services, presumably. The other is with the mobility plan and transportation planning that I think it was the last city council meeting that we selected a firm with. We'll have a contract back here shortly. So in the upcoming year, you're going to start to have those discussions about expanded services. In this CIP, and I don't want to jump ahead, but you have two line items for stormwater planning. So those efforts collectively across those three, veins probably start to lead to the discussion that that you've articulated there.
My basic question, are we taking into account the growth of the city in terms of the way we budget, not only for CIP but operations? That's a fundamental question.
Yeah, everyone's probably gonna hate me for even mentioning this, but I do recall maybe 10 years ago seeing a city on the East Coast, I believe it was the city of Hollywood, extrapolating from their future land use plans to say, this is a snapshot of what the city will look like in 10 years, and then using it for purposes of personnel and head count, saying, well, imagine, if we're doing a plan that says we're planning for roads and we're planning for parks, if we had a city of 120,000, what would we need from a staffing standpoint? And then extrapolating back from that, are we making sure we're recruiting? Are we building pipeline for employees? I saw something like that. I don't know if that's the kind of what you're getting at, but that was something I saw once.
It is saying, yeah, we're looking forward, but can we go out 5 years? Can we go out 10 years and look back and say, are we becoming what we want to become?
Nigel?
Chris, this is just a question. Is your concern more administrative and services, or does that incorporate infrastructure as well? Everything?
Both.
Okay.
Infrastructure, both infrastructure and services.
So my question to Lisa and/or John would be, aren't we doing a pretty good job as a city right now on future planning as far as having developers pay a larger portion of the cost for what we have to provide when we have these new developments, houses, whatever commercial go in? I'm putting you on the spot, Lisa, and I don't mean to,
That's
it's
okay.
more like, do we have a comfort level as a city?
I assume you're referring to, impact fees, new growth, is that what you're referring to? We do have impact fees for new growth, and if we talked about, when we get closer to build out, if there is a tear down and a rebuild, if it has an impact, a change of use, I'm not a planner, I'm not gonna go into that detail, but generally speaking, if you have a regular office building and their impact on the infrastructure is finite based upon their number of trips. If you do a medical or something else that's more intensive of a use, there could be additional fees for that. So that's the way we assess and attempt to capture some monies for infrastructure from growth, if I understood your question.
Pretty much you did, and we get a lot of the information from John and his team.
Yes, they sure do. And in fact, your model here that you have before you, we've projected impact fees out 5 years, which we do every year. And community development, they do a great job at looking at what's out there, what they know might be in the pipeline, looking at the highest and best use and giving us some guidance with respect to funds. And we use that and we populate it in your capital improvement program. So the next 5 years, we've done an estimate revenue projection from that growth and utilized it to fill the needs that are in your capital improvement program.
And Jim?
I think my question, Lisa, is really, actually, is three areas of question. One is the disaster reserves that we have in place and the different sources that you've outlined. Is Ian was basically a 978 kind of number. The number out of all the different pockets that we could find that would be available for another Ian is, we have 978. But those are coming from a variety of general operating funds and that type of stuff. What is our risk factor in terms of funding future dollar value of that 9.7? I mean, is it really a $12 million number? Is it a $15 million number? What is our gap in terms of disaster recovery reserves?
I'll speak to that from a financial planning standpoint. I mean, I personally, I love the fact that Florida statute put that in there so we can all start these discussions, but it's so difficult to, come up with a finite number because of the different range of impacts from the storms. And the storms behave differently.
Right.
Irma behaves so differently, and again, I'm not gonna go out into operational mode, that's not but analyzing what it cost is where I'm coming from.
Right.
So Irma cost, it impacted us in different ways than Ian, and then there's the magnitude. So, I mean, when we look at those two storms and, if we say there is some sort of cost escalator, we would hope that, we're somewhere near that, if you'd like to go back to that.
No, I think really the question really centers around, you all had a meaningful dialogue about this last fall before I came on to council. And there was a big discussion, a big debate in terms of the millage increase to go ahead and support the incremental funding for the reserves. And what I'm trying to clarify with all these different pockets coming in, are we truly funded to the level that council feels comfortable that we're sufficiently funded? My sense, based upon the dialogue that was occurring last fall, we are still sufficiently underfunded in terms of storm reserves. And that's what I'm trying to get clarified, because I get kind of comfort food type of discussion today, saying we've got 9.7 that we can draw upon versus a need of 9.78 that occurred with Ian. We've got more houses, we have more units, we have more stuff coming back on at a higher cost, a higher CPA. It seems as though that the needs are probably significantly higher than $10 million. So I just throw that out for discussion purposes to council, because you guys spent a long time on this last fall that prompted the discussion in terms of the increased millage. Secondly, to Chris's comments, I can't agree more in his need to go ahead and strategically focus on how we need to structure and the core services delivered to the community. I think the biggest thing, though, I would probably argue that, quite honestly, with the seasonal plus the residents, we're already at just shy of 100,000 people here today. And if I look at, I can't remember what stack of papers that I went through, that 5 years out, we're looking like at 110, 115,000 during peak season. So we're already kind of there right now when we're playing catch up on those numbers in terms of the services for those 94,000 or whatever we have today. But we do have to forge a partnership with both the county and the state, because the whole transportation issue boils down to the state is controlling I-75 and the exchange in the I-75 interchange. That interchange is going to be done sometime between 2040 and 2045. Two, we are making major improvements for stormwater purposes along east-west passage for Terry Street, but effectively we haven't increased the lanes on that for moving traffic east-west in the city. We also are in gridlock on the east-west flow of traffic on Bonita Beach Road. Yes, we've bet the ranch on the quadrant plan, but how much is that really going to go ahead and do to solve our problem with the east-west migration? North-south Imperial, it's doing a great job. It's doing as it belongs. And the other north-south path is 041, which, quite honestly, we've tried to limit traffic on that and control the flow on that. So we have handcuffs on us in terms of meeting some of those transportation needs for that growth that you talked about. So I just throw that out as concerns that we have to somehow integrate this strategic discussion with both the county and state. And then lastly, prior discussions on I've got a variety of the projects on my end of the town. We have in the next 3 years, we'll have over 1,800 new residential units coming online. Combination of apartments, and lastly, the 700 up at Bonita Mines. And in those discussions, we talked about the fact that we haven't really looked at our current levels of impact fees in several years, as well as on our permit fees. And I think from a revenue standpoint, to address some of the infrastructure items that you've talked about, Chris, I think we need to also look at other revenue sources to go ahead and accommodate what you want to get to. That's.
Anyone else? Is this the last go-round for budget stuff for the day?
No, after this, we're prepared to go through any specific or walk through any of the CIP projects as well.
So just, okay, so like a thought or idea that doesn't necessarily have to be put in at this exact moment. Is this a good time for that, or would that be later in the workshop?
Is it operational or is it capital?
No, it's it's more on the financial end, investments wise.
Whichever I think.
Okay, I'll be real quick with it. Okay, so long story short is this. There is currently in the state of Texas, in the Texas legislature, a move to do something that's called pretty much a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So they're starting to implement adding Bitcoin to their ledgers on a state level. And there's a number of tech-friendly cities that are starting to do that. And you'll see some of the private investment firms have kind of turned the corner and are now including them in your portfolios for 401ks and whatnot too. So it's bottom line. It is a big piece of the financial future of the world. That said, I'm not going to ask for anything like that on a city level. But what I think would be interesting, and this isn't really, it's not helpful for us because I think we can adequately handcuff ourselves where it can't be touched. But the thought would be for a $5,000 a year, $5,000 a year investment that we can't touch, that would be just used as future tech use potential. The city can do whatever they want with it, but $5,000 a year just in Bitcoin. $5,000 a year in Bitcoin. And with that, each year we'll buy $5,000 in Bitcoin, right? At some point down the road, this council can say, hey, this was actually a really good idea. Let's do it to scale, like some of these states are considering, some of these large cities are considering, and maybe let's put $100,000 in it. If it's going that direction. If it's not, 5 years from now, we've wasted $20,000, that's not the direction it's going. Bitcoin has gone up for years. It's the future of global finance. So what I'm saying, instead of us putting it into our budget or me asking for a breakdown of what it would look like and the reasons why, because there are a number of studies that I could show you as to what they're using as rationale for this type of commitment. Instead of that, I'd say something very small, a token, but more of something for the future generations. Councils from now, maybe that barrier's already broken, so then it's not crazy. So then when they're putting together their basket of investments that we have for the future, say we're investing in 10 things, this could be one piece of that. But now it's going to not be nearly as taboo because somebody back in 2024 thought enough to, hey, you know what? Maybe this is worth consideration. For $5,000 a year with a little tiny budget, it's just showing that we can do it. We're not doing anything else with it. We're going to keep the money. It's going to be forever. Well, it's Bitcoin. We'll keep it. You don't sell it. Very, very small. I'm not asking for us to change anything fundamentally. I'm just showing our future generations, because it won't be for us. It's not going to be worth anything by the time we're all termed out. But 2 or 3 councils from now, they might be like, wow, that was a great idea. Maybe we should include this. And people aren't going to be like, you can't do that. They'll be like, yes, they can. They've been doing it since 2024. So that's the thought. Let it saute if you want. If you have questions, let me know. But yeah, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to do anything drastic or crazy. It's more of a signal to the future, because honestly, there's a reason the private side of finance has been very averse to the idea of crypto in general, and Bitcoin overall. It's now really relaxing the way that it's looking at it, and you're seeing a larger buy-in because you're seeing what's going through the House right now, and on a federal level, Trump wants to improve how we deal with Bitcoin in the country. He wants to have there's a number of bills that are going through the House right now that are going to unleash crypto to a different level. That said, he's not going to change his mind on it, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be incorporated more and more. So I'm just trying to get the feet wet with the idea that, hey, future generations, this is something that you can actually consider. And it's not some pie in the sky thing. We have the entire state of Texas legislature going through doing it right now on a state level. So it's not like, oh, that's crazy. 5-10 years ago, you might have been like, hey, that's crazy. I'm not talking about doing Dogecoin. I'm talking about Bitcoin. You're talking about a huge piece.
Morgan Stanley.
Dude, Morgan Stanley, dude, all of the big boys are doing it now. All of these people, all these old people who are now retiring, were clamoring for the ability to get Bitcoin, but it's something that they didn't have the ability to do. Now these huge finance companies are buying it, and then they're setting up portfolios and allowing the seniors and people who don't understand it to be able to buy it without the risk. So now people are having access to it that never did. And as that continues to happen, the thing with Bitcoin is there's a finite number. So as more people get access to it and it can't increase, what happens then? What happens to the price? Only one thing. The only thing that has happened every year since Bitcoin has become a thing. So I'm not asking for a bunch of money. I'm asking for $5,000.
My only kind of thought with that is, and it really has to do with any investment, not just Bitcoin, is I don't think we're really in a position to take the tax money and invest it. I think we're taking the tax money in order to do things with
But
it.
we do. No, but we do. We
Well,
do.
I mean, I know we do some
Can we ask
investments,
Lisa a
but
question?
yeah, I mean,
Because
I think we're limited in what we can invest in, yeah.
Right, this is why I'm saying make it a tech investment. It's an investment in tech.
some of our investments are in funds, are they not?
Right.
Yes, we invest as, in the investments that are clearly outlined for local government and Florida statutes. Some of the investment pools, other things like that, yes.
So you brought up the point, and I understand where you're coming from, Jesse. I think it's admirable, but what I would be fearful of, we've had swings, and you see Bitcoin lose 14, 15%, that the time that we need that money, it's on a downswing.
Right.
And usually when you need the money is when there's an economic issue. I don't think anybody, the reason all of the big shops are putting it out there is because they know they can make money doing it. It's not that a lot of really smart people aren't still a little concerned about how far it's going to go. Ethereum's coming up now, to your point, Bitcoin's at less than 10%. So what'll be the next choice? And I know where you're going, I just think it's a little early.
I agree with you on that. Listen, everything you said, I 100% agree with you on, which is why I said $5,000. It's not. I'm not saying it to a point where we're like, oh no, we're going to need that money. That's purposely why I didn't say, hey, let's do a large number and actually make an investment in it. I said, what is the smallest number that I can say where people will actually be like, oh, okay, they did it. We aren't going to feel or notice $5,000. Again, it's not for us, and it's not about their swing in the markets are irrelevant because Bitcoin, you're not taking it out. So Bitcoin, you buy it and you keep it. So it can swing from dusk till dawn, and it doesn't matter because you don't touch it. It's an investment, very much like a savings account that you're not allowed to touch or have access to.
But apparently a lot of people have been touching it.
Well, right, but we would set it up so that you couldn't. So pretty much the city would have, I don't know logistically how we would do it, but in my head, similar to, I have a private key for my, right? So you, instead of keeping it on a platform, which a lot of people do, it's kind of risky. People can break into the platform. So you get a actual, it's pretty much a safe that you have all of your crypto on. So Arlene would have the key, right, in the safe upstairs. And it would be a situation, so like none of us could go take it. We can't get a card and be like, let's go spend the $5,000 that we invested. It's going to be put away, and it's just put there. It's like in a time capsule.
If we could do it legally,
So,
that's a question.
and I'll talk with Lisa about the Chapter 218 Florida statutes provides for local government's investment requirements. And so their stability is one of the criteria that might be an issue. But I recall that the city of Miami or Miami Beach looked into this a couple of years ago, and they did a white paper on it. And my recollection was that they required a state law change, and that's probably to that local government investment strategy. And then this year, I know there were at least 2 bills filed for the state to do that. So I think the question I would ask, my guess, and I'll look into it, is right now we probably can't add it into our investment strategy unless there is a de minimis level where something like $5,000 is so low that it doesn't count towards the investment strategy. But I would say that we probably do need to watch the statutory guidance. And to Councilman Fullock's point, if we were to buy into an investment fund that had a element of Bitcoin in it, I think we probably could be okay, because if it's a managed fund, then the stability and the liquidity and all the other requirements of state law are probably met. But I have to look into that.
We're just talking about it, Jesse. I would be more comfortable with a fund that had different types.
Michael Saylor, who's like the Bitcoin guy, has MicroStrategy, which is straight up Bitcoin only. So like that is a fund, but it's a fund that is strictly Bitcoin. Grayscale has one that is similar. So there are 3 or 4 that are very large scale that specifically are Bitcoin investments. If we didn't feel comfortable doing it ourselves, myself, if I can have it, you know me, I'm a quasi-libertarian, and I like to kind of have my own stuff, and I don't want to have it out there. I don't want them to have the fund because I want to be able to have it when I want it. And nobody can take it, nobody can freeze it. But that's the cool thing with crypto. It's not like cash. It's different than that. So I would be comfortable with a fund. For me, it's just something for the future to be like, hey, first of all, this is truly, all of the financial indicators show that we're at the infancy of this. We're like 2000 of the internet right now for cryptocurrency. And specifically to Bitcoin, I won't even get into the others because some of them are BS, complete BS. But the fundamentals of Bitcoin have been here for a very long time. And with all of the large-scale investment, and then the president and the House all acting on it, and then you have entire state legislatures acting on it, it's like it went from tinfoil hat, crazy, cuckoo stuff a couple years ago to now people are like, holy crap, maybe this is a thing. I didn't get on Facebook for like 8 years because I thought it was going away. I was wrong.
And it is traded on Wall Street.
Yeah. So
There is one company that is traded at NASCAR. So it's legitimate, traded.
So tiniest piece, just a signal for the future. That's it, is what I was kind of thinking. But I don't know how we would do it or what next steps and discussion of this would be if there's an appetite to have it, or if you want to have discussion now. I mean, honestly, I'm whatever.
Let me,
If we could look into it a little bit more, 'cause I mean, I'm not even sure we could invest in gold under the Florida rules on, so, our commodities. So let me look into it and see if, I know there's some restrictions on derivatives and other things, so it just depends on what the classification.
And part of it is also the reason with the 5,000, when I said like the techno, so like, the tech committee that Chris is over, whatever, say we were like, okay, so it's for, it's for that committee, whatever, we could, if it's not part of the investment strategy, we can still put $5,000 away for a city functionality and time capsule that thing, put it away.
Chris, you wanted to say something?
yeah, I think Derek brings up a legitimate point. There were 2 bills filed in the legislature this year, one in the House and a concurring, or whatever they call a companion bill in the Senate. And those were died in committee on May 3rd. Those would have allowed the state to use public funds in Bitcoin. The state can't do it, and we need state approval to be able to do it. So at this point in time, it's my understanding, which Derek, I think, can subsequently confirm, that we're unable to invest in Bitcoin. I understand where you're headed with it. I think it, you raised some valid points, but I think for purposes of the discussion tonight, I don't know that we can. So,
I'm actually, I think the one point that Councilman Purdon brought up may be something we could look into, which is if we didn't include it as an investment. Let's say we were to do a City of Bonita Springs 2025 time capsule for the 250th anniversary, and we put $5,000 worth of Bitcoin in there. I don't think that qualifies as part of our investment strategy. That doesn't mean that if you open it 50 years later and now it's worth $3 million, you can't utilize it. It just, so I'll have to look at it and see if there's what the options are.
okay.
Anything else on operations side?
We're not asking for direction tonight, but we wanted to bring your attention to the continuation budget, and we wanted to walk through if there's any questions on any of these items. You can see where the total cost of the extension of those services is around $614,400. If there's any questions on any of those particular ones, we're happy to address them. I think Nicole is also available virtually, because some of these are park projects, but we have staff directors here as well. And we can also continue to talk in one-on-one briefings through any of these questions as well.
What are the major drivers of any increases in the budget? I mean, what are we doing for salaries, health benefits, insurance, those kinds of things?
We did project some potential increases for insurance, and then you have a pay per performance line item that's already in the budget at $100,000, which we're able to utilize during April. And what we do is that's half a year of the increase, and then the fully loaded new salary is anticipated and budgeted for in the following year. And that's for all of your regular staff. That does not include myself.
What about health benefits?
That's also included in this budget, and then we projected a potential increase in cost for that. We are hopeful that we'll be able to enter the Florida League of Cities pool, which could be an additional reduction, but we did do the market rate increase of approximately 10 to 15% is budgeted in here. So in past years, we've budgeted that 15% and we've come in a little less. We've also come in at a little bit more, so we've conservatively put the 15% in there.
Okay.
I've got a question. When I go, and I don't know if this is part of the continuing budget or not, but we included a line item under, looks like Parks and Recs or whatever, for an additional $251,000 for street decor enhancements.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you explain that and clarify what that is?
So Laura Taylor's here as well. That's the, so what we have continued to do this is a question as to whether you would like to, this is on the
So he said 251, is that, you mean, are you talking about the 266? I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
What page?
Well, it's 266, but the big number is the 251.
correct.
Okay. So this includes the holiday lighting on the street poles that go all down Old 41 that you saw last year, as well as some of the additional enhancements that you saw on the streetscapes for Celebrate Bonita. And we also put some banners in there as well for the cost.
We do have some street banners that are in need of replacement. That's a smaller dollar amount. But we did, if you look at the PowerPoint that Lisa provided, we wanted to make sure we called that out. So that's a point of discussion for you all. It's the downtown corridor enhancements. So if you would like us to,
I guess I'm trying to clarify, because we have the winter holiday in the park, we have the winter decoration holiday stroll, we have we have the Halloween decor and stroll. All of those things have enhanced the downtown decor and so forth. I guess what I'm trying to clarify is what is special about the 251 versus what we're doing for these holiday events?
So for the holiday events, we kept things like, we've decorated the park for the last 20 years, or so 25 years or so. So that, we kept that in the special event budget as it was last year. We heard council during the workshop where we were told to keep the level of service for the events the same. In addition, last year for the 25th anniversary, we did do extra decor and seasonal decor. So we did it for Halloween, we did it for Celebrate Bonita, and we also did the street poles, which were never decorated before. So you saw street lighting from Bonita Beach Road all the way to Old 41, or New 41 from down past Rosemary. You saw garland on the poles, you saw the banner over the street, the median decor where you saw the roundabouts were lit. That is included in this item. That was something we've never done before.
so the actual event cost, and there is some decorations that are done in association with Holiday in the Park and Halloween in the Park that are directly around Riverside Park, Depot Park, and the Banyan Tree parcel. And those have always traditionally been done. In the 25th anniversary, that extended along the entire corridor. And that's something we want some direction from you all.
So this is new spend. This is a permanent upgrading of our street decor
Should,
that has ongoing maintenance and support going forward. And what does that look like?
So this is not a purchase. This is something we would pay annually. They come in and they put the decorations up for us. They maintain them during the month, and then they take them back down. Should council want to continue to decorate the entire corridor, which was something we were trying to focus on too, to see with the new businesses downtown, we looked at more corridor-specific decor and seasonal decorations, and that is what this line item includes.
I guess quite honestly, I'd rather see improved street lighting downtown than this spend here. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I'll leave it at that.
I would say I'm with you on the street lighting if we want to find money for that, but not at the expense of this, because I don't think we're just hitting our stride downtown. The businesses are coming in, the people are coming back. Downtown's better than it's ever been. We got to keep hitting the gas on that.
And folks really loved it.
They love it. Everybody loves it.
It's the constituents. I've heard more about what we've done for the
Yeah.
events.
It's
than
the only time we hear great things, right? Normally, people are mad unless they're saying how great it looks downtown. We don't need to go backwards on that. If we need more lighting, let's find it, and if we need to trim fat somewhere else, fine.
This is not going
Fix
backwards. It's not going backwards. It's keep maintaining where we are today. It's
That's like saying the rollback rate isn't going backwards.
Well, I think one of the things we were also trying to do, but we cannot guarantee that this price, this line item will come down, is with the coming on of the Banyan Tree parcel, there is some lighting elements to that, and I'm not sure if, we were looking at some lighting elements to Riverside Park when we make those improvements. That's not gonna provide the music and coordination with the stroll and all the holidays, but there might be some reduced costs in the rental equipment of this. We have talked internally about, at some point, getting some direction from council if there's some permanent infrastructure that adds to that down the road as well. But right now, this is utilizing vendors to come out and put out the decorations similar to, It's similar to many HOAs that currently do, and then they service them during the entire season, and then they remove them, so we don't store the materials. We do store the actual banners that go onto each of the street poles, and we've had to repair some of those and fix them, and then we're in need of some of them. They dry rot out, so we do need some, that's a smaller dollar amount.
Right.
so.
I mean, but bottom line, this is new money, this is an ongoing expense in future years, probably increasing with consumer price.
Correct, so if it is added, and this is the direction you wanted to go, it became part of the continuation budget, we would have to account for any inflationary costs with that contract as we do with other contracts, or it could be, looked at again in the future too.
Laura?
And as Arlene pointed out, we're going to do other lighting, so there will be a reduction in costs for this. But I think that it brings so many people downtown. I mean, it reinforces Bonita is this place of destination. And folks in Naples are coming up saying it's better than we get down there. And they're walking, and it's family-oriented, and it's really wonderful. So I think that it would be nice if we could fit it in, and if we add the banyan tree project, which I hope isn't going to be delayed, that's going to be amazing too. Just the lights there in general, and then the lights around Riverside Park, what we're doing, it'll all just add more and not add pricing.
Do we,
Just gonna ask Laura a question. Laura, you're pretty familiar with these budgets on the special events. Can you give a percentage, and does it include public safety, the sheriff's department in the budget?
Yes, we've been working with the sheriff's office quite a bit recently about different barricades that they're requesting. They're asking for us to enhance. We're actually renting them for 4th of July, but we did see an increase. We were able to keep our event budget a little less than last year. We worked really hard to try to keep the same level of service, but also decrease, and it was just a little. But we did take into account what everyone said during the workshop. But yes, and costs go up to host those events, and we have new safety measures that are added this year that we need to
So
meet.
we did call that out separately on the continuation budget call-out list. You can see that there's security measures for events at $25,000. That is in response to a direct request from the sheriff's office regarding enhanced barricades in light of recent tragic events around the country and internationally. We're looking at a phased approach to work with them on that, and I think we've looked cost effectively. It is definitely more cost effective to purchase them to long-term lease them. The other issue would be is how do we're going to need to address with other entities that utilize our park that do have road closures that may need to utilize these as well as part of their safety plan, because this is becoming incorporated into their safety management plan for events in the future.
Laura?
The sheriff did mention this about barricades, and so when we redo our library, maybe we do an extra space to put these barricades. It's a good idea. And we could also do sponsors. Most cities do get sponsors. Like the honor of the 250th anniversary of the Army, which happened to coincide on President Trump's birthday, was all taxpayer. There was no tax dollars used. It was all sponsors, 0 tax dollars. So we could, Estero does sponsors all the time. Laura has a packet now. And so it just was a little tight for the 4th of July to bring it out. But we could start as a team going out and asking folks if they want to sponsor. There's no harm.
Well, we're less than 20 minutes till our next meeting, and we still haven't done the capital improvement. Do we want to start talking about that now real quick, or, okay?
So in your budget books, we have provided the capital improvement plan. You've seen these in individual workshops periodically throughout the year. We've taken the information received from our consultants, from contractors, and updated this accordingly with the best estimates that we have to date. We've actually divided them through your strategic priorities, and then on a project phase, you'll see whether the project is in planning, design, construction. So the phase would indicate where, if there was a concern about a project, or if you wanted to move forward a project or delay a project, though that is all part of the planning process and where it is within its phase. We're happy to walk through any of these with you, if there's any specific questions on any of them. And additionally, we plan on the briefings to go through any concerns or address any then that you would like to see adjusted or bring back more feedback on. And then I didn't know if Matt wanted to cover the questions that were received during public comment as well.
It's up to the mayor. Would you like to answer those?
Yeah, I think one question was why 4 years?
Well, it's a $13 million project, and those don't happen overnight. Included in that is the intersection of Paradise Road and Shangri-La Road. And one of the concepts that may be looked at is some form of intersection control, which may require right-of-way, think roundabout. If council moves forward, if that is something that the designer recommends, it certainly will take time to condemn the property or to acquire the additional property. The geometry of an existing T intersection doesn't allow you to put a roundabout in. So some of the time delay there, I wouldn't call any of it delay. A $13 million project over 4 years is a pretty standard time frame. But some of it could be phased, and you might be able to do some of the pedestrian improvements, northward and work on the roundabout piece if that becomes a component on a slower time frame. With regard to the concept, speed tables is easy. With regard to the concept, you have to start somewhere. So, if I told you it was $1 million project, we wouldn't get very much there. So we look and try to do a detailed estimate, although it's just a conceptual estimate to give you an order of magnitude. So the idea there is for 6,000 feet, if you look at a 10-foot path on one side and closed drainage on both, curb and gutter, landscaping, lighting, and a sidewalk on the east side of the road, we believe it's in the order of magnitude of $13 million. There will be a lot of public input with this, just as much as you heard today from resident for some ideas. I've heard from other residents that just happened upon out there that they are not interested in certain components. So we will come up with concepts, advertise it as we have in the recent past, probably with message boards along the corridor, hold a public workshop, and get some feedback about what that concept and phasing would look like. That could drive, many different decisions for council. It could reduce the cost of the project. It could speed up the timing of what does get built, or it could make it longer. With regard to speed tables, I think those would be a component of this project, most certainly. And they will be kind of driven by where the crosswalks and whether you have features on the east side of the road versus the west and where they interconnect. Some councils in the past have not had an appetite for speed tables. Other councils have. We certainly would be probably looking at them as a means of traffic control. We've certainly heard during the construction, people speed up and down the corridor. And really the ways to slow people down are physical constraints within the design, and speed tables are a key component of that.
Chris, you had a question?
Is there, I'm looking through the community aesthetics, parks and facilities. Is there anything in here for the DPZ design work for the Lyle's Hotel area, the Good Bread, the Art District that people keep talking about?
So the first phase of that is the concept review, similar to how we work through with the Banyan Tree parcel. So I know in the next few weeks in the proposal, they're doing their own workshopping. They would need to present any ideas or proposals to council. And then we would have to work with contractors, consultants to do some price analysis and bring that back to you. There is funding in urban design as well, but depending on how we want it, we'd probably provide a plan for phasing that as the pay-as-you-go, and then you would all set priorities as to what elements of that potential plan you want to see occur and happen.
I have a similar question, similar area. Do we have money, if hypothetically we wanted to demo the Good Bread store, for example? Do we have money for that? Or would we need to put money in there now to do that? Can we still do that if we wanted to? Hypothetically, if we wanted to have that discussion, do we have?
You have funds, I believe, in that line item for that item, as you have funds for other structures as well independently. I think you have a line.
Is that enough to?
I used to know the number off the top of my head, but you have over $400,000 for the
So that's
Good Bread.
plenty to-
I'm not an expert in demolition, but I don't believe it's gonna be $400,000 should you choose to do that.
One night.
Some heavy equipment across the street.
To give you an idea, we've torn down several homes with the home buyout program. I think on average they're around $20,000. I think the pole barn was just a little bit north of that on the Wonder Garden, so, that gives you a sense.
Yeah, it's 498,000.
I knew it was close. I do.
Additionally, that is the location of the Lyles Plaza. It's part of that facility, so that money could also be used for future planning for concepts that come out of the study.
So if we decided hypothetically that was the direction we were going, do we have to go to RFP, or do we have somebody, because it's so small, do we have somebody contractually that could just take it down if we wanted to do that already?
I believe, and I
I
don't
believe
think
under,
she's here.
I believe under a continuing services contract, we have that ability without the RFP and the dollar amount that it is. But I would advise you that it is on the city's list of historical places, so it does require to be heard in a public hearing by the Historic Preservation Board. But as you recall, the city council has the final decision-making authority on those certificates of appropriateness.
Can we schedule to get that done fairly quickly?
I guess what I'd ask is we address both that and the Wonder Gardens Cafe.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think if you're gonna do it, let's get it done. We need more parking over at Wonder Gardens. Aesthetically, I mean,
Sure.
those, we've tabled both of those. We just need to make a decision.
We did ask DPZ to keep in mind the consideration of that structure and any future recommendations they had for that structure to us, including all potential options in the end. So we can move forward separately of that and inform, or you can
Would it
have
have
a
to be
recommendation.
two separate green sheets or one green sheet apiece?
Couldn't it be a combined project?
Right,
Combined.
knock them both,
Save money.
one vote.
And
If you're providing direction to staff to move forward with the demolition of two structures, that can be in one green sheet. It would still require separate certificates of appropriateness. I'm sure Mike's looking at me there, make sure I'm saying it correctly. Two separate certificates of appropriateness that would be reviewed in a public hearing by the Historic Preservation Board, which is appealable. The final decision is appealable to the city council.
Okay, so if we wanted to, is there an appetite to ask staff to move in that direction?
Absolutely.
So this is a workshop. We did provide.
Hold that thought,
section-
hold that thought.
We did provide a section of the city council meeting to address workshop items, so that would be an appropriate time to bring it up in the public meeting portion.
Yes, ma'am.
and it's
Just
my
wait 12 minutes.
it's my understanding that the Good Bread is no longer historically relevant per se. Correct. No longer on the books,
So-
no longer.
So it is still on the city's list of historic structures.
Because the city has.
The analysis that would be done behind it would have to provide, because I believe when it was originally listed, it was in its original location, and the fact that it was I asked, Mike is probably the better expert on this.
Good evening, Mike Fegan with Community Development. The structure itself is still designated, but it lost its ability for any type of funding because it was moved from its original location. This is why it became a line item in your budget after it was moved. because it lost a bunch of its funding sources. So for all intents and purposes, it's a historic structure that doesn't get to enjoy all of the benefits of being a historic structure.
Got it. Hey, a question as to the historic committee's involvement in this. We had discussion about the historic committee overall, holistically. Where were we at on that conversation before we move on to this next conversation?
That planning is still moving forward.
Okay, so it may be more advantageous to have that discussion prior to the discussion I was saying we should have in 15 minutes.
Well, we're down to 9 minutes before the
Yeah,
meeting.
so I would, if you wanna move forward, because if we had a draft of a reconfiguration of the committees today, moved it forward through 2 readings, reselected new member, you're talking months, and it sounds like this is something that you're ready to get done, so.
Jim, you had something?
Yeah, 2 items on the capital side. One, we don't have anything specifically in there for the Rails to Trails project.
We do.
Where,
So the Sun,
I'm looking at the Sun Trails project, and
Correct.
I don't,
so you have road impact fees at, 4 million nine,
5 million there.
yes, 5 million there, yes.
Does that cover all of our, if we get this in March, does this cover the scope of what we would spend in the next fiscal year? And quite honestly, I'd like to have a realistic discussion about the construction and the maintenance phase, so that's fully loaded up when discussing other capital improvement projects.
So this funding line item was originally provided for
Right.
acquisition.
Exactly.
We've been utilizing some minor amount of funding, because the original was 5 million, on some surveying work,
Right.
some consulting work. It does adequately meet the requests that you've received individually for grant applications where you'd pledge the 5 million there. I think the next question is I know that Lisa's been speaking to our consultants about the line of credit, and we feel confident in the operating budget, we can clearly handle whatever servicing fee there is for that. But if you would have to pull the line of credit, what would happen is it would be added to the debt services, and then it would be brought out into this line item. That's a council decision of future, but that's acquisition, that is not maintenance and operations.
Right, my assumption would be is that you're gonna close before the end of the fiscal year, and you're gonna begin some construction costs in there. So I guess my question is, Chris did a great job with the business plan that he shared with us. And I think that some of those expenses and planning assumptions need to be built into the capital improvement plan. Understanding that there may be grants and that type of stuff that makes that disappear. But at least from our end, we need to be able to say, if that funding doesn't come, what are we on the hook for?
Well, we haven't even engineered it yet.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, but you've got ballpark expenses for each mile and that
Well,
type.
we know what we know roughly what it would take. First thing we have to do is do a PD&E study,
Right.
and that's gonna drive the engineering. So to know the cost of construction, it's a swag at this point. But we do know that there are funds available from the state, the Send Trails program, for the construction.
Well, my main concern is the out years, like all of our other projects and so forth, we put out the expected expenditure.
Can we continue this later during the other meeting? That way we can have a little break before the start.
That's what I was gonna, please.
Okay, so, this meeting is adjourned, or workshop is adjourned. 5 minutes till the next one.